Barcelona. Pretty good, huh? All right, and thank you, Jonathan, for basically setting us up for success, or at least doing everything you can. Very nice segue. Talk about video. I think it's fair to say that video has been an ongoing topic in this industry for a while. And I think I'm not going out on a limb saying that probably most of this room have either had it on the agenda recently or in the past, and for good reason. At least there's quite a few brands and companies that have shown that there's a lot of value in video, whether that is increasing conversion rates, reducing returns, building your brand. There's different reasons for going into video production. There's also some reasons why people don't do it. It can be very costly. It can be difficult to manage with talent. There can be technical limitations in the studio, on the websites. It could be many different reasons. Today we're here to talk about the opportunities of video production and also the challenges of it. With me today I have a very capable crew that comes from different backgrounds, different countries as well. We're just going to do a round of intros very briefly, just so you know who everybody is, what they're doing on the day-to-day in their respective companies. If we start with you, Kat.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. So I work for Boohoo. It's a group that is made up of 14 brands now. So our group varies in price point and demographic over those brands, which means obviously different views on quality. We buy shallow depth in terms of our buying strategy, so that's a lot of product that comes through a large-scale operation in all the brands. In terms of, so my role, I head up 4 of those brands currently in the studio function, so the e-commerce, production, and also my team work alongside the creative leads and art directors to produce creative and campaign shoots. In terms of video, at Boohoo specifically, we invest heavily in campaign and social versus e-commerce. But as we said, we'll probably touch on some of those challenges and opportunities for us in this talk.
Good, thank you. Adrien?
Hi everyone, I've been working in fashion-related industries for about 15 years now, and in businesses that sell images but deliver clothing for 10 years now. So yeah, I have a lot of background with that kind of post-production, and I've witnessed the transformation of video in Zalando, moving from PDP, like just videos from simple walk-in, walk-out regular PDP shoots to elevated, where we actually do have specialized sets and specialized crew that create that print for us.
All right, thank you. Matthew?
I'm Matthew Miller, Studio Operations Manager for Saks Fifth Avenue, New York. I've been with the company for 12 years now. Started entry level and kind of like grew into the role I have now that kind of developed somewhat organically. Because all studios aren't the same, I'll say that Saks Studio consists of a couple different spaces. The main one is in New York, but the teams are, we have a creative team, a product photography team, both doing stills and on-figure shooting. And then they're kind of bookended by a big sample team, 2 different teams, and image edit, item setup, and copy. And I provide a wide range of support to all those teams. I love big projects, so I usually am working on something kind of fun. And then something I want to brag about is that we just built a 50,000 square foot studio in downtown New York, and it was my project entirely overseeing that. A huge challenge, but a lot of fun. Under budget and in time, so always a good thing. But I say that not to brag, but because it's an example of Saks putting its money where its mouth is, and they really put a lot of value into the studio, and it's kind of a no-brainer for them to make that kind of project. So
I think a lot of people are pretty jealous of you. A no-brainer to do that kind of project. All right, let's go back to your respective leaders and talk to them about that. I think before we kick off and dive into this topic, I think it'd be interesting to see how many have actually had experience with video in the past. So show of hands, how many are actually currently doing video or have done it in the past? All right, pretty good amount, maybe a third, 40%, something like that. Who have not done it but are considering doing video? A few. And who is definitely never going to be doing video? No? All right, good. Okay. Next question. So if we dive into the experience that you guys have had with using, managing, producing videos, and how you're currently utilizing it, what does that look like on your end? And I know, Matt, you have a bit of a fun story with your start at Sex, so maybe we can kick it off with you.
Yeah, and probably some of you too. I fell into this industry kind of by accident. But like my first day on the job as a staff person, I was assigned. I walk in, the assignment board says R&D set for video. And I walk over to these two sets. There's a senior photographer working on one. Never met the guy, and the other one is my set, and I don't even know how to turn the camera on. So that was just like my entry into the industry, and the other photographer wasn't very excited about me being his partner for the R&D, but we became better friends, of course. But it was telling, because I contributed to that R&D. Over the course of the next few weeks, I had a massive contribution to it, and we're still using those videos today, but without a baseline photography experience. There's lots of stuff to do and impact to make in a photography setting, so that's why I kind of share that story. And we're still using still life video we have right now. We're shooting handbags, shoes, and jewelry. We've done on figure in the past. We're probably going to go back to it. So we're doing some revamping right now, some R&D. Again, we're always doing R&D, and I think everyone should be. But to see if we can get back to better videos on stills, and then like actually reintroduce on figure video. So.
All right, great. Kat?
I suppose for our background, we tested video catwalk on our PDP back in 2012. We then adapted that, so we moved to constant lighting with our model studios to try and work with those efficiencies and see if we could drive performance and conversion. Ultimately, the impact on the volume of product we had and it limited us in terms of what we could get on the site. And we've tested some on stills, shoes, handbags, accessories, but it's just not something we've ever consistently rolled out. And I think that the challenges with the speed, the pace at which our business has moved, we haven't really ever done testing. We've just approached it. We've given it a go. We've put it on site, and then we've just monitored any kind of conversion impacts, but there's no real robust feedback process for that currently. Where we are now, as I said earlier, we invest really heavily on campaign and social, and we've got very much a social-first approach in all our video content now, and the opportunity to use the content we have there on the e-commerce platform, or do we separate that out as a whole separate e-commerce function as we do with our model imagery? So at the moment, yeah, we're still in that testing process across all the brands. The interesting area for us is because we've got those other brands. We've got Caramillion, which is a much higher price point. It's potentially a brand we could test on a smaller scale, so not impacting the volume we have through Boohoo, and really seeing if the customer in that demographic responds to the video, whereas for some of the other brands that are more affordable, that might not be something we build into budget. So I think that's our real opportunity.
Adrian?
We started with video for PDP for the white background images and then videos, of course, and then moved on to elevated PDP. We've done some A/B testing, and we found that elevated P in itself is really good, but elevated PDP with video is even better. So we actually have a lot of shoots with video for products, and of course we also have our own ecosystem of promoting brands and selling stuff. So there's different placements on our website that allow for video for creative content and of course social media.
All right, thank you. And I know that you guys have been doing quite a bit of testing,
yeah.
or you test everything before you launch something new. Can you share a little bit about how you've gone about that and how you've evaluated, and that goes for the whole group, if it's actually worth the investment?
I think for one thing, it's really worth the investment of doing A/B testing for everything, particularly for something that's so expensive to create, like video. So I don't really know the details. I'm not a really data analyst, but I can tell you that basically they just have the possibility of measuring how a product is performing in different scenarios, just with PDP, just with elevated images, or like a combination, and all of these together plus video or separate. And then you can see, of course, like what the numbers say and what the consumer buys.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. I know, Matthew, you've gone through a similar process, and you've had your hands pretty deep in that, right? And have some insights into what went on there.
Yeah, yeah, this is going to come back to like just the point being be data driven, but and it's been a common topic in the room today, of course, which is great. Saks went through a business split recently, and we always had to kind of like look at the stores and look at that customer too. We're now just Saks.com, an entity, just doing online retail. So now we have, and that was like 18 months ago. So we've been kind of like adjusting to that a little bit. And now we really are being much more purposeful about what we use, how we use our data, and we're letting it drive the business. So that filters down to our studio too. So we are doing lots of testing and kind of flipping certain videos to the website occasionally to see what happens and see what the feedback is, and using A/B testing, and we are getting some access to some of those metrics, hopefully more in the future. It should drive the video decision is what I mean to say. Kind of a funny lesson that the Saks learned about 5 years ago is we had these kind of like over the top high production for PDP videos online. They were runway videos. They were cut in several different ways and zooming in and out, and that only lasted about 2 or 3 years once we saw like what it was costing us. But the outcry from the customer was great. The feedback that we got from them said it all in a way. Unfortunately, we had to balance. There's some decisions to be made there, but and anecdotally learned the returns went up after that, and it just affected it just was a bump for the company. So we want to come back to on-figure video in a more purposeful, data-driven way. So.
All right, I think there's some interesting parts in that. Like, I think it's great that we're able to test everything out and see the impact on returns. And in this case, actually seeing the returns went up afterwards, but still it's not worth the investment because it's simply too expensive to produce these type of shoots. But I wonder if anybody has ever managed to put value on what it does to building a brand, like creating that experience. Like, it can be, for some that have the right setup, it can maybe be easy to measure the impact on the conversion rate or even on returns. But what does it actually do to a brand to have that type of experience for your customers? That's probably going to be very hard to make tangible and measurable. One thing that I also think is interesting in video production, I know from you, Adrian, you brought this up in our call the other day, is what it actually offers for your team and the team that you're managing in terms of it kind of extending a career path. And I know, and I'm looking at Huang, who is managing all the operations in Vietnam, that this has been something that's been really helpful for us too, that be able to expand your capabilities can be something that actually adds a lot of value in how you keep engaging, motivating, and growing your team. Can you put a few words to that?
Yeah, sure, definitely. Zalando has real focus on developing teams. I don't know if you know, but Zalando has one of the finding mindsets: be your team's biggest fan. So obviously, what we want to do is always give the possibility for people in Zalando to develop. So the intention is, when possible, when moving from retouching in-house to externalizing, if there's resources available, why don't just allow those resources to promote themselves, to gain hard skills, and then in my particular case, we have 4 ex-retouchers that transformed into video editors, and I think it's a great opportunity for teams to be repurposed and to enable new skills.
Fantastic. It's nice when there's an added benefit to it as well, right? On the people front, business and people coming together. I think, Matthew, during our conversation, you also mentioned something interesting. And you said, don't do video for the sake of doing video. Basically referring to, instead of focusing on the content as such, focus on the the customer experience and the shopping experience to start with, and then work your way backwards
Yeah.
to make sure you design it for the specific customer experience and the segment that you're looking at. Can you put some words to that?
Yeah, I hear this when we were doing this R&D and kind of like just rethinking the wheel as far as PDP goes, and I hear often the knee jerk is like, well, let's add more detail shots, let's add more angles, let's add this or change these standards, add more and more, and I think that's obviously could water down the PDP. It could like just be actually kind of distracting. I'm more pro tailoring the PDP to your customers' needs and interests. So that means like you have to really know who you're providing an imagery to, and then who that video, because we're talking about video, who that's going to serve best. So just kind of being precise about that. The idea here, even though we're still like we're not omni-channel anymore, we still want the customer to kind of have like this seamless experience, walking into the store, and then they take, there's an experiential takeaway that they can that kind of like compares to the on-site experience as well. And video is massive in that regard. And just so I said, know who your customer is. Saks customer has evolved in the last 10 years, and it's very interesting. And we're seeing more of that because we have lots more data at our fingertips. But we're a discretionary business. Like no one like needs the stuff that Saks sells. So like we have to work hard to like know what their interests are and like put that information together and into good use. Gen Z is buying into luxury more than one would think. So like we have to kind of cater to them as well. And we have just a younger, more diverse audience that's like really interested in luxury. So we have to kind of like focus on that and keep our current our legacy customer base as well. So just all to say, I should say too, we have two customers. One is the consumer. The other one is like brands and designers that we work with who like we have exclusive relationships with, and we can't just kind of go throwing things on the website, obviously, but we want to keep them in mind when we're building out the PDP or making standard changes like that. So all to say is video is integral, and you should totally go for it, but like be precise.
All right, good to know. I know, Kat, you also have an interesting kind of challenge and opportunity as well within the group of Boohoo, having around, we just discussed like 12-ish brands now.
14.
14 brands.
We added it up.
They're busy these days. 14 now. Like ranging from, we talk about Gen Z, but also a more mature audience, and how you then design the PDP and for the specific audience.
Yeah, and I think within those brands, because we've acquired some fairly recently, they've gone through a rebrand as well. So actually knowing the customer and that demographic, it's challenging when you actually might be in a process of trying to change and adapt that. I think next steps for us will be looking at, I suppose, how we move forward with those limitations with the e-commerce platforms, because not all brands are on the same platform, which was a bit of a learning curve for me even this month. Something we tested on another side just didn't work on one of our bigger brands, and that's a real impact to the operations, to the in-house team, because all our video team's in-house, it's only a small team, but we don't outsource a lot of that, so within that there's challenges within the team and their skill set. They're picking up a little bit of everything. They're not specific roles, I suppose, in terms of the flow presentation that Thomas did earlier. It's very different to that, actually. Everybody's expected to pick up a little bit of everything, so I think it's a really good opportunity for me to speak to everybody here today, just to see how we could relook at that video function and the team, and offer them some progression within the business.
Brilliant. And Adrian, I know you said, and I want to get this right, so I'm just going to look at my notes here. You said, at Zalando, the evolution of imagery and videos have been going from aspirational to inclusive, much less polished and more relatable. And in some cases, to give this kind of TikTok feel, if it's that the audience, right? Can you elaborate a bit on that? I think it's super interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. Zalando also has a very, very strict diversity and inclusion policy, so they do want to create content. We want to create content that's inclusive by nature. And as part of this, I think it's good to create content that's not just aspirational, where you always have like the perfect kind of video, but more towards have a social media vibe when you implement it into a PDP image, a PDP. So you can create videos that are like tutorials and sort of just how you use the product, how you put it on, and give it a lighter vibe. So yes, that would be a switch from these perfect edits to like rougher ones.
That's a bit too rough a one. Okay.
Did I say something stupid? It's very
Yeah.
possible.
I'll put that in a brief next time. Make it a little rougher. I think it is interesting. Like we wouldn't have had this conversation just a few years ago that we're talking about making a TikTok feel and something that's less polished in that sense.
We spoke about just moving to iPhone as well. We've actually tested shooting e-commerce video on iPhones on campaign shoots because I just thought, why not? You know, with TikTok, we actually tested a trend, an edit that we'd seen on TikTok and applied that to the video. We haven't actually put them live, but we filmed on our usual kit and then on iPhone. And I think it's just something it's really interesting for us. Like I said, as a social first approach, is that the approach we would take, but also that the considerations of operationals, kit, the quality that's required for it. I think we could just have a whole talk on that subject.
Sorry to interrupt. We actually did the exact same thing. We actually tried to shoot with an iPhone for one particular project, and I have to say, to explain, I lead the two teams. Digitex like sort of manage color, and they're expected to deliver information that would allow other teams to focus on color perfectly. So the video editors were depending on color references from the Digitex, and they were supposed to color grade videos into something that was very accurate regarding to the product itself. So we tried the Blackmagic camera, we tried a Sony Alpha, and we tried an iPhone, and because this is exactly one of those projects where we wanted to be a little bit inclusive with the type of edit we were doing, we ended up going for the Sony Alpha because it allowed mobility and sort of like a fresher feel. Whereas the iPhone could have done that, but when you're talking about color grading, it would have been very difficult to do that in DaVinci with the quality that the iPhone provides right now.
That makes sense. Matt, I know you were also have some experience with this, like you had during the lockdown and so on, you had to do some. I know probably a few brands in here had to shoot from home and.
Yeah, just a brief comment. We always had two jokes: shoot from iPhone or shoot from using your iPhone to shoot, and also shoot from home. So then, when the lockdown happened in New York, I got a call from my boss the next day and said, "Shoot from home. What do you think?" And it was real. And we successfully shot from home. It was somewhat indiscernible from the studio shots. So anything's possible.
Actually, I remember from the last time we had the Flow event in Europe was in Berlin in November last year. And I actually remember the studio manager from Nelly.com. He was like, I see you nodding. Remember that, like, where he's like, somebody was saying on stage, yeah, don't think ever video is going to be a thing. And he's like, actually, we had like a person on set while we're shooting that just come up with a camera and doing some fun things, and we put it up and play around with it. So it seems to be becoming a thing where just, again, a few years ago, it was a joke. Mm-hmm. And so, show of hands, how many have used a smartphone to do video? Okay.
Like personally or for business?
That's like... What's that?
Personally or for business? When we're
business.
Not talking OnlyFans.
I'm not going to go into your personal videos. That's outside the scope of this session. Take it in the happy hour after. I actually think there was like 15 people showing hands. I'm actually a bit surprised. That's interesting. Maybe we need another session on this next time. All right. I see that it's time that we get to questions, but before we do that, very briefly, can we just do a quick round with the experience you guys have now, both good and bad, any advice you would give for people that would want to try to kick this off or at least start testing it?
I would say start simple, start in-house, start small, invite vendors to come in, retail vendors, or just to come in and show you, give you demos and let you borrow the equipment, and maybe tell you how other studios are doing it. There's a lot of help out there if you just kind of like throw your flag in the air, and I don't think a lot of studios maybe realize that, but certain vendors will come in and help assist, and then what I say is you can. If you decide to outsource at some point, you'll have a business case for that, and you'll have some data. So eventually you might decide to use a robotics or outsource some work in your workflow, but then you'll have a business case for it.
And then following the agile methodology that Jonathan was describing before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just to echo Matt's comment, I think start small. Start with your in-house team, utilise the skill sets you've got already. That's how we started. The photographers picked up the tests. Even I picked up a little bit of video editing, definitely not my forte. It's a real specialism. And yeah, I think there's a real opportunity as well to educate the business that you work within by testing, as I said, and just starting small and utilising the resource you've already got. I think that would be our advice.
To quote Javier's method a little bit earlier, use the change and challenge, see who wants to do something new, start small, use your own resources, and then expand slowly and always test.
Okay, that's the takeaway from today. Always test. Good. I think with that we're ready to open for a few questions. Okay. Oh, can you guys read that? Oh. I'm gonna take it from the top here. What was the biggest obstacle along the way for you to get into video? Equipment, camera, lights, or maybe the tech, hosting on-site implementation, and how did you overcome it? So, biggest obstacle, how do you handle it?
All of the above, I think. Yeah. I think the hosting and the site implementation, obviously that's not really my area, but from an e-commerce and IT testing point of view, like as I said before, we move at such speed. There really wasn't time to test, and as a brand, and especially for Boohoo, it's just very intuitive. You know, we're aspirational, so it's just how do you get that across with the team size we had at that particular time. In terms of equipment, that's another one. We often shoot campaigns, and I think when the budget's ever reviewed, we pull it out of video first. Because that spend is so big, you're hiring kit, it's the crew on the ground to support that, especially if your in-house team is relatively small. But yeah, as I said, it's a little bit of all of those, personally.
I think because I work for Zalando, so we had equipment, we can't complain about that. I would say the biggest challenge is you need to shift your mind from 2D to 3D, metaphorically. So you actually need a script or like a shot list or like some idea on how to use that video, and you can't go about just like, we're gonna shoot and that's it. So actually we had to have people that would help us create some templates, because you don't necessarily need a director every time you shoot a PDP video. So having a template for what you edit would be very useful whenever we're talking about PDP video.
One issue that we had, it's common, is just the lighting. I think now there's great lights coming out, of course. LED panels that are just really awesome on the market now, available for a cost. But initially we were using some fluorescence, and we kind of really bought into it. And over a period of 3 months, we saw lots of different color changes take place, and ended up being. It was interesting because we made some friends with like the engineers on that with that manufacturer, and we learned a lot about our product. And we got close, but eventually had to like kind of switch out completely to a different product. But lighting.
On lighting, to a certain extent at least. Next one we've got here is something very concrete. Is someone's asking, for us, color matching was a big thing during video testing, especially photo versus video in the PDP. How did you solve this? And did you solve this?
We're in the process of solving this. So we've had a recent example with a campaign shoot, and we've used an external fashion photographer who had a particular look and grade she'd applied. We've shot the same products in-house and externally, and then the video content to go alongside that. And I think key and something I realised is that we don't have that sample in front of us. We were not colour matching to a physical sample. It was very much we've had to work with the photographer's images and colour match from there throughout stills and video. From a trust point of view for the customer, so matching your assets rather than trying to match to the physical sample. But I think, as I said, this is a work in progress for us, and because we're not doing video at scale at this point, that's a real learning curve. I'll let you know how it goes in the next Flow event.
Our studio has managed it. With On Figure, we never figured it out. But We try to do as much as possible on set in the camera. We have an LED set up just blasting the still life product with light, and then we take our shots, our standards, and then we flip on the video and just run a quick video without touching the things. Okay. So that's how we handle that, and it does the job. It's very close on site.
I'm not sure I should answer this. Like, there's obviously people who are. Well, as I said, there is a really close collaboration between video editing and the Digitech. So that would be ideal if you can get the color reference from the studio. Then you can use that in your editing process at the end, so you can apply color grade after the edit.
Okay, so hasn't really been solved all the way around yet. Something to work on. That's good. Next one up. How was the impact regarding load times in the shop with video and the PDP? How long took the process from A/B testing to go live? Maybe we want to chop this one up. Let's start with load times. Impact on load times. Well, any experience that you guys can share from that?
Yeah, we're at the point where we're restricted to how many videos we could upload on the POP. And as I mentioned earlier, when we tried to test on our Boohoo platform, actually that didn't work at all. On the PDP, when we uploaded for a particular campaign. Where's the question? There was no A/B testing. And yeah, I think this is, for us, that is the business case, is where do we put that money in? And at the moment, we're just approaching it as the bigger campaigns, the bigger marketing spend is where we would put that video content. And I think that's why we've not got to a place of rolling that at scale across all our products. You know, we're shooting up to 7,000 products a month, so it's, it'd be a huge scale test. So I think the approach will definitely be testing a smaller brand and probably be able to answer some of these questions probably more effectively at that point.
I would love to answer this question. I really hate being the person that says I have no idea, but I have no idea. I do not work in tech. I work in the photo studio.
And I think looking at the timer here, Matt, you get a chance to wrap it up for us.
With an answer?
If you have one, you don't have to. I'm not gonna.
No, it impacted us, but we also planned for it. We just kind of knew that was part of the testing and the R&D. Is like how far down the line is this going to impact our workflow? So it wasn't perfect, but we did kind of solve for it for us. As far as like how long, the question went away, but a period of months after the A/B testing. The A/B testing is kind of like the front line of like collecting the data in a way. So there's lots more that goes into like seeing how the customer's reacting to it. So several months. A/B testing for us is just kind of like really still at the R&D stage.
All right, good. I hope there's some takeaways for you guys out there that are looking into this. Otherwise, go find these guys in the happy hour afterwards. I'm sure they're happy to share some more experiences. And I think we'll wrap it here. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah. Give them a round of applause.